Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Gabrielle Fournier. I'm a member here at the International Relations Council. Today I'm sitting down with Mr. Jim Townsend at the Center for New American Security, and we're just going to talk a little bit about his research, his area of expertise, and any other questions that we have to answer about transatlantic security and things in the surrounding field. So thank you so much for sitting down with us today, Mr. Townsend.
I'm happy to.
Okay, so the first thing that we like to do is just leave the floor open for, one big kind of overarching thing that has really grabbed your attention or something you've really been focusing on recently in regards to your research, your expertise in the region, or just a general statement that you would like to kind of kick us off with in regards to transatlantic security.
Well, sure. Well, this is a very important couple of days in which we're doing this recording. Of course, the NATO had its defense ministers meeting. It just finished yesterday, and the Munich Security Conference just kicked off today. And this is probably one of the busiest times if you do Europe and NATO problems and issues, is because there's always news and decisions and announcements made at these ministerials or at the Munich Security Conference, which is I refer to it as the Oscars of it's the Oscars of the transatlantic community because that's where everybody goes and it's a big deal. And I used to go quite a bit when I was staffing the Secretary of Defense, but I haven't been back in a few years and I don't know as many people as I used to. That was the fun of going to Munich was not so much the speeches, but seeing all of your counterparts from across the alliance and catching up with them and having a beer, and that was always great. And so that's happening now, and so there's a lot of news media that I do because of that. I get calls from news outlets from across the globe asking me about the what's happening in Munich and that kind of thing. And so this is my busy time. I liken it to um, some type of accountant who does people's taxes. And when tax year rolls around and the tax month, they're really, really busy. And so for me, it's always this weekend is always like Super Bowl weekend. It's just,
Yeah.
all this stuff. The reason I'm interested in this is because I spent most of my adult life working in the Pentagon. So I worked there for about 35 years, most of that time on Europe and NATO. And I started working Europe and NATO in 1990 when the Berlin Wall had just fallen. And so in the Pentagon, I worked in the Europe NATO office, and as a young man, I was the Scandinavia desk officer. And so I was just up to my neck in NATO enlargement and trying to remake Europe after the Cold War had ended and looking ahead to what a peaceful Europe could look like. I mean, I could talk about this for hours, but Greenland was just in the news. And one of my first jobs there as the desk officer was to lead a group into Greenland to dismantle a lot of the U.S. military infrastructure that was there coming from the Cold War. And that was in the news, of course, people saying there are all these bases there in Greenland.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when
Yeah.
I was there, there was only two, and so we had downsized since World War II when we first started establishing bases in Greenland, and we had downsized to just two and some radars, and so we had to dismantle those things, and we had to negotiate it. We didn't go in there with a screwdriver and actually dismantle it. That was the Air Force that did that, but we had
Mhm.
to get agreement from Denmark and from Greenland to go ahead and do that, and that's what we did. So from that point on, I worked at NATO for 4 years, in 1998 to 2002, and then I was head of the NATO office in the Pentagon, and I finished up as a political appointee. I was a civil servant during those days, and I finished up as a political appointee during the Obama years. So for Obama's 8 years, I was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Europe and NATO, and what that means is I was the political appointee in charge of my old office that I was a civil servant in, but I was the political appointee and taking that office from the I guess from 2009 when Obama first was inaugurated, through the invasion of Crimea by the Russians and through all kinds of crises for those 8 years, the invasion of Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, I mean, all kinds of things. And so when Trump was elected in 2016, he was inaugurated in January 2017. And as a political appointee for Obama, that's when all of us had to leave. And so
Right.
from that point on, I still worked in NATO Europe, and I still do today through think tanks and consulting and through things like this. And as I mentioned, the media. And so I haven't really left that patch of the world. And so here I am.
Well, great. Thank you so much for that overview. It sounds like you've been entrenched in some really cool things and working on the multilateral institutions and I know one thing that I'm studying a lot right now is the American Liberal Order, and so you were really a part of shaping that. So that's wonderful, really cool.
Well, you're right. I mean, it was what's interesting though for me is that so in 1990, 91, 92, 93, as we were enlarging NATO, which actually the first new allies came in 1999, really, 98, 99. But what I inherited, and all of us who were working Europe NATO after the wall fell, was that um, we had to bring in the former adversaries into the West. In other words, the Soviet Union, the Warsaw Pact
Mhm,
nations.
mhm,
The Warsaw Pact nations, particularly, as soon as they could, they threw off their Russian masters, if you will. Gorbachev luckily allowed that to happen, and they raced to Brussels and said, "We got to get in NATO, bring us into NATO." And so
mhm,
a lot of what we did was to bring them into NATO and to try to envision and rebuild Europe, as we would say, is into a continent, a whole, free, and at peace. You know, a continent that was not part of the Cold War or a hot war as it was during World War II and World War One. And it was really trying to envision your point about rules-based international order,
mhm,
bringing those nations into that rules-based international order that we had built with our allies after World War II. But these nations, former Warsaw Pact, they had never existed in that they were part of they were part of the Soviet constellation of satellites, if you will.
mhm,
And now they wanted to enter into that world, and so we had to get them ready for that. So Czechoslovakia and Hungary and Poland and all that. So and so that continued on into the new century. We were continuing to work on NATO and the European Union and the transatlantic relationship and trying to keep going this rules-based order that we had all developed. And now, of course, it has fallen apart, which I
yeah.
never thought I would see in my lifetime. Of course, I didn't think I would see in my lifetime the end of the Cold War. But that ended, and but we had a period there between 1990 and I guess this year where we lived in this kind of rules-based order led by the U.S.
Mhm.
And its allies. But now it's changing. It's I'm not sure what it's going to look like. Not necessarily that the rules go away, but the U.S. role in the transatlantic community is going to change,
Mm,
and the allies and how they existed within that rules-based order is going to change because they're going to have to be responsible much more, in fact, completely for the defense of Europe. And the U.S. is going to keep troops there, but I would imagine over time they'll be pulled out. But today and yesterday and over the past week, the administration has been very vocal talking about invading Greenland, things like that. And so there's been a sledgehammer taken to the way things were. And so we're going to have to rebuild something, I hope, with our allies. We'll see. But there's got to be a lot of healing done before we can really work together again, I think.
I really like how you phrased that, healing as far as it really it does go down to the soft powers and the diplomacy and the important relationships that we build with nations across the world to make these institutions stronger. Which leads into a great question that I have for you, which is when we're talking about NATO expansion and NATO, and allies in this way, what nuance might be missing from this conversation now or previously that most Americans might miss when we're thinking about NATO and these transatlantic relationships?
Well, I think, most people listening and that you would see on the street were born and grew up after World War II,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they were born during World War II and then they came of age in the late 40s, early 50s. But most of us have taken for granted the institutions like NATO or the United Nations or the European Union or a plethora of other kinds of organizations, either in the civil society, like the World Affairs Council, or maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
part of the governmental structures, the multinational structures coming out of the UN or other things that have tried to make sure that we develop a society that can keep war away. If you look at the 1930s and what the international situation was like then, not just the rise of Hitler, but how the European nations dealt with that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of tools did they have or didn't have? If you look at the 19th century and the balance of power and the wars during those days, the international system didn't really have institutions or um, tools to kind of keep the peace.
Mm-hmm.
There were wars breaking out pretty often, and for various reasons, good and not so good reasons. And so, with the end of World War II, there was a group of allies, particularly after the atomic bombs had been dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we had the birth of the nuclear age. There was a great, we had some very smart, good people coming out of the war who said, we've got to do things so that we don't have another war, because this time with nuclear weapons, it could be very different. And
Mm-hmm.
so they built things like NATO, they built things like the UN and these other things. And so we've all been born into that system, and we've kind of taken it for granted. And it's not something that you think about on a day-to-day basis when you live in the US and you're doing your normal job, whatever it is. You don't wake up in the morning and go, "Gosh, I hope NATO's okay today." You
Well,
know?
some don't,
Yeah,
some do.
and so I did. I
Yeah,
had
right,
to for
right.
years, but I think we've had this luxury of living in this system that actually benefited the U.S. And I would say not in a way that's a Trumpian way of
Mhm.
getting us richer or
Yeah.
something along those lines, but it was something where it benefited us because it gave us, through our leadership in this world, keeping it going, it brought about stability, it brought about security, it gave us a shield behind which we could flourish as a nation, and the European nations too.
Mhm.
We were able to recover from World War II, particularly Europe was devastated by that. And
Yeah.
so we were able to flourish and have economies and relations transatlantically, unlike anything you would have seen in the 30s or before. And I think we have grown a bit jaded
Mhm.
too easily, mocking it or dismissing it, and allowing some people who I still haven't figured them out, but allowing people to come in and say things that just really aren't true in terms of the transatlantic relationship and
Mhm.
our relationships with Europe and that type of thing. I mean, we've had issues, Europe with us and us with Europe, on various things over time. And I think a lot of these issues, such as burden sharing and this kind of thing,
Mhm.
coming to the fore now and are being worked on very hard, particularly
Mhm.
by the Europeans to deal both with Putin and also with the demands of the United States and the fact that we're going to be stepping back, from NATO and stepping back from European defense, which was that has shaken the Europeans up quite a bit, and probably made Putin pretty happy. But so that's happened, and so I think as I go back to the 1990s and going back to your question.
Yeah.
Uh, I think for a lot of people uh, who were born into this system, I think we're going to miss it. And I think we don't realize that, but I think our children and our children's children will not have what we did in terms of having this international system that we were able to flourish under and feel secure under.
Yeah.
Things like arms control, things like allies that will where we are pledged to protect each other. That keeps you more secure than if you're off there by yourself.
Right.
It's good to have friends, and so I think we'll miss that, and I don't think the American people realize that, and they might not realize this is even going on because, like I said, if you're living in a state and you're a farmer and you got to go out and handle your farming life, you're not going to worry about where the state of NATO. But if that farmer has a son or a daughter that grows up and wants to join the military and they go off to the military, maybe NATO will be more important
Sure. Right.
that
Yeah.
farmer than it was. And so anyway, I think we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, well, which is a great segue into one of my final questions, which is, in your view, kind of um, how you see European security and NATO security um, moving in the next 6 to 12 months or through the end of the administration. I know that a lot of things are kind of being decided, as you mentioned, and working on right now. But if you could give a brief overview of kind of, given what you know and the people you've worked with and history and kind of also current administration, how you would see or sum up things moving forward.
Well, that's a great question, and everyone's trying to figure that out.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of a short term, long term kind of thing. In the short term, you're going to see a lot of movement in Europe as they try to organize themselves, hopefully within NATO and not outside of NATO, but try to organize themselves to figure out what they need to do to defend themselves without the United States. There's not a lot of trust now in the U.S. There's a feeling that like within the alliance, there's a trust between all the members of the alliance because the alliance doesn't work unless you trust each other. And
Mm.
there's a part of the treaty that makes NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty, and there's an article in there called Article 5. You might have heard about Article 5, but it's that article in the treaty that pledges everyone to the defense of one another. And
Mm.
so there's a lot of trust and the confidence in the allies who have signed that treaty that will be there for each other, as the alliance was for the United States after 9/11. NATO came to our aid, and they invoked Article 5 for the first and only time,
Yeah.
uh, and it was to help the United States. And so that trust has been, I hate to say it, you can't even say that it's been dented. I'm afraid it's been really torn
Mm.
between the U.S. and NATO and the allies. And I think I don't I think over time there could be some healing, but I don't think it'll be ever back to where it was. I think we were living in a very unique period where there was so much trust in the U.S. That we could lead with great confidence, and we could have confidence in the allies that they would be behind us, as they were in Afghanistan and Iraq, Libya, the Balkans. I mean, the list goes on. But now I think that trust is gone, and I think that means for the allies they have got to hurry, 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 and rebuild their militaries so they're able to fill the gaps left by the United States. Because even though we're going to keep troops there, and even though uh, we'll stay engaged in NATO and we're not going to leave NATO, at least not now. We're not leading the way we were, and there's a feeling that there could come a time when Article 5 is invoked, perhaps, or even it
Mhm.
can't be invoked. But the U.S. says, "Look, Russia's your problem, guys. You're going to deal with Russia. We happen to like them," or I don't know what the conversation would be, but regardless, they would find themselves having to deter or defeat the Russians, and to do that, they have got to fill the gap left by the United States if we're not involved. So in the short term and in the long term too, because this is going to take a long time, you're
Mhm.
going to see the Europeans really doing some things they probably should have done earlier, but they did not, and so we're going to see a lot of work there, and that'll be both military as well as political, because they've got to figure out politically how are they going to deal with various issues if the United States is really not playing a very major role.
Sure.
So you'll see that. I think for the United States, I think we're gonna, as has been said by the administration, there'll be a recalibration. So we've already made changes that were announced just a few days ago of swapping around some of the NATO military headquarters. We have given up some of them to the Europeans that we would never have done it before, but we're doing it now. And so we've got Europeans that are now in the strategic lead in a lot of areas. We're still engaged there, but not in the strategic decision making as much as lower level things where we help training and readiness in the alliance. We don't help to steer as
Mhm.
much as Europe will be
Yeah,
doing. So there's that. And so you're going to see with the United States trying to refashion how far will we take this. For instance, the Secretary of Defense or War, as he calls himself,
sure.
has not gone to the NATO meetings. He hasn't gone to the Munich Security Conference, which is really made for ministers of defense and secretaries of defense. And he didn't go, and so you can see at the senior levels, U.S. engagement in Europe and U.S. leadership in Europe, which depends on our engagement, is beginning to already step back. And I think on the U.S. side, as Europe is going to be working hard to rebuild, we're going to be trying to figure out how much should we do and how much should we not do, and you'll see
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So if for the long term, I think you will see much more of Europe in NATO, much less United States in NATO.
Mhm.
You will see an alliance relationship to the United States that is a bit standoffish.
Sure.
There might be some defensive walls there where they're gonna, not take us at our word.
Yeah.
And so while I think hopefully for with most countries, we're going to stay on a friendly basis. I think it won't ever be the close relationship that we've had in the past. And
Mm.
then finally, we've got to figure out Canada. I think with
Yeah.
Canada,
Oh,
we're in a
absolutely.
much worse place and getting worse. And I think that is a tragedy, just a tragedy.
Agree.
And I cannot, for the life of me, and I used to work closely with Canada, I don't know what it is that has caused this. I just can't put my finger on it. I can understand with Europe and burden sharing and this kind of thing. If that's the issue for Canada, that's just ridiculous. And I don't know what it is, but we need to have strong, close, friendly relationships with our neighbor to the north. And I
Mhm.
hope we can get us back somewhere close to that over time, but
I,
it's not going to be anytime soon.
I sincerely agree. I sincerely agree. Well, thank you so much for answering all those questions for me. I just have one final one for you, which is how would you recommend to our viewers today how to stay engaged in these conversations and topics, whether that's news outlets, whether that's connecting with local things such as the IRC? What do you think would be a good way for your average American to stay informed on these and formulate their own opinions on these topics?
Well, that's a really great question, and I know it's hard too.
Yeah.
First, locally is so important. I think Minneapolis, that has
Mhm.
just been moving, watching what's happened there as the people have tried to not just deal with the immigration problem there as a problem in and of itself, but how to protect themselves from those tactics.
Yeah.
And so to me, that just really emphasizes how important locality is because it's right on our front doorstep. These are not problems that are many, many miles away and belong to someone else. This is something we have to worry about. And so on the local level, I think it is important to stay in touch with groups like you're doing. I think is really, really important. And your work is really important. And all of us here in Washington are so glad you're doing it. So I would support the local groups. I would invite ambassadors to come to your city, come to Kansas City. I see them quite a bit, and they always talk about trips that they've taken out there. It is not hard to get them on the road.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to have every now and then have them come out and treat them to a great Kansas meal, steak, and and
Uh-huh.
all that. That is better out where you are than where we are. Have them, talk to them hear their view, and more importantly, have them hear your view.
Hmm.
It's so important. So I hope your group can do that. They'll
Absolutely.
pay their own way. There's,
Oh, oh
you know,
yes. We actually just hosted, I don't know if you're familiar with Christopher Hale,
yeah,
ambassador. And
Brazil, yeah,
yes, yeah, he came out for, we have the IRC does an annual luncheon lecture, and he got to speak with a bunch of students and, involved participants, and it was great. And so the IRC hosted him this week. And last year it was Joseph Manso.
Joe
Um,
Manzo, yeah, I know him.
yeah, and then I'm not sure about previous years, but they have really been able to get a lot of really awesome people to come in, and ambassadors, diplomats, foreign
Good,
service constituents alike. It's been wonderful to hear from them.
good. Well, that's certainly something that you all can do. And then as on an individual basis, I think it's so important to follow the news. And I know that's hard because there's not a lot of faith in the news today. And I will say that for me, and I'm not here as a political person. I'm
Yeah.
not Democrat, I'm a civil servant. I have Republicans who are friends and
Yep.
Democrats who are
Yep.
friends, and work for all of them in the
Mhm.
Pentagon. And so, but what I have found that has really been the best to keep me in the loop on things was through the Economist magazine.
Love it. Yeah.
Yep. The Financial Times, the FT. So both of these come out of the UK. The BBC as well. I do a lot of work with the BBC.
Okay.
The New York Times, and I know people are saying, but New York Times, I think, are this pretty fair.
Yeah.
And so I would really try to keep up with things as best can, and always read critically.
Hmm.
No, you no, don't expect to be spoon-fed
Uh-huh.
something, but read critically, read with your own eye, and based on your own experience and what feels right, and that helps keep on top of things too. And that's what I would recommend right now. I mean, there's a lot of other things too, but just for starters, like you already are doing, but
Yeah.
others too. That's really the best thing, I think. And it's all online, and you might have to pay for a subscription, but it's
Sure.
worth the money.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I know for me, just on a separate note, I'm studying at American University right now. I'm doing the online international relations program. So,
Oh, good. Well, I taught there for a little while, and
wonderful.
that's right up the street. I'm just 2 blocks away.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. Yeah, I'm hoping to move out to DC this year.
Well,
I'm doing
good.
the online program, but I would like to get some in-person stuff going on. They've got lots of wonderful things going on in American that I see these emails and I'm like, oh, I wish I could be there. So, yeah, that's my goal. But it's great to hear these things as a young aspirational civil servant myself, and hear this advice and just kind of what you're talking about, and how I may resonate with a lot of what you're saying, and also learn from experts such as yourself. So I really
Sure.
appreciate
Well,
this on a personal level as well.
if you come out, give me a shout, then we'll have a cup of coffee.
Absolutely, I really appreciate that. But on behalf of the IRC Kansas City, thank you so much. We're really glad to have you today. On a housekeeping note, whenever we put these on, I think it'll be YouTube, and then some short clips on our Instagram as well. Um, is there a YouTube channel for CNAS or somewhere that we should make sure we cite, to give you all credits, or yourself personally?
No, you can just however you want to do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Great.
fine.
Wanted to make sure that we give credit where credit's due.
Well,
So,
thank you. Well,
yes.
you're doing well.
Okay, well, wonderful, Mr. Townsend. It's been a pleasure. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with me today, or can I let you get back to the rest of your afternoon?
No, keep the faith.
Okay, thank you. I really
All
appreciate
righty.
that. Thanks so much, and take care.
You too.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.